What is a woman?
A woman is a quantum oscillation amongst 10,000 fractal paradigms in a post-constructivist matrix. Yeah.
What is a woman?
Brother man, in the Nubian cosmos, a woman transcends amongst multifaceted kaleidoscopes amongst 10,000 ancestral vibrations. Yeah.
What is a woman?
Man, we all know what a woman is. A woman is a...
What is a woman?
A woman is an adult female with almost always 2 X chromosomes. Brother man,
You
youngin,
a
you a sellout.
I'm a straight Democrat, but I'm for the best person.
Oh, yes,
But
sir.
now, why you got Donald Trump?
Because I paid attention in school when I was a kid. I know the true history of both the Republican and Democratic Party. I know that they really didn't switch.
Duh.
During the Nixon Southern strategy, that one became more clever than the other in dealing with black people. We the Democrats, we were the Republicans' friends. We was their friends, but we were the Democrats.
Her head explodes.
How many refugees has Poland taken?
0.
And you're proud of that?
If you are asking me about Muslims illegal immigration, none. Not even one will come to Poland. Not even one if it's illegal. We took over 2 million Ukrainians who are working, who are peaceful in Poland. We will not receive even one Muslim because this is what we promised.
But I asked not about illegal immigrants, I asked about refugees. And Jean-Claude Juncker, the Commission President, says that you're racist. You sound proud of the fact that you haven't taken any refugees.
But this is why Poland is so safe. This is the reason why we have not even one terrorist attack. Look at the streets in Poland, and we can be called populists, nationalists, racists, I don't care.
Well, that clears that up.
In phases 1, 2, and 3, they did what no other studio could do. That every time a new Marvel movie was coming out, we all expected it to be great. We would go into the theaters not wondering if it would be great. We used to go into the theaters expecting, like it was magic. And since Endgame, that magic is gone. We've gone from expecting it would be great to hoping it'll be good.
And the Disney stock just keeps going down and down, and Bob Iger is what's going on with that stock?
Who's racist? Trump. Now tell me what makes him racist.
The fact that he called for the public execution of the 5 Central Park motherfuckers even before they went to trial.
Let's say your daughter gets raped.
I'm looking to kill a motherfucker.
Let's say your daughter gets raped, right? Now, I happen to be in the area because I was wilding, I was robbing people, harassing people. Your daughter gets raped, she's beat so bad that she can't even remember what happened.
She can't even function.
Police arrest me for being in the area, and I admit to doing that to your daughter, right? How would you feel? How would you feel? Answer the question. How would you feel? How would you feel? What did you say right before, just now? Right before I let you finish, what you were saying? No, you said you want to kill a motherfucker.
Right.
Is that what you said?
Right.
Yo, if you admit to raping somebody, whether you did it or not, you should never admit it to. And the fact that you did is okay for me to feel like that. Now, you can say Trump is insensitive for not apologizing after finding out that they didn't rape. But at that moment, he had all right to feel like that. Just like you feel the same way.
She was stunned.
Why did you argue that religious services, religious people pose a greater risk of infection than people gathered to argue for defunding the police?
The policies restricted all types of activity in the district.
All types of activity in the district?
Yes, Senator.
Did it restrict mass protests in the district?
I don't believe it said anything one way or another.
Of course it didn't, because it didn't accept mass protests. If you want to come and protest, defund the police, if you want to support that, that's fine. You can gather en masse, person to person, close up, thousands of people. That's okay. You know the facts. You were a good lawyer. Why'd you lose?
Senator.
Oh, come on, Judge. Don't make me do this. Mayor Bowser was going to mass protests herself personally with thousands of people. At the same time she was doing that, she was prohibiting churches from gathering socially distanced outside wearing masks.
Rules for thee, but not for me.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. Not too long ago, 2 friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro. And in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, "We don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban stopped and said, "How lucky you are. I had some place to escape to." In that sentence, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
This is what Reagan later meant by "we are a shining city on a hill."
Hello, everybody. Good evening. This is the Conservative Take. My name is Kyle, and welcome to the show. This is Thursday, and we have a pretty, I would say action-packed, but some might but not say that because it's a lot of controversy about this particular subject that I'm going over, which is going to essentially be the tariffs and the Liberation Day, which happened on April 2nd. That was the day where President Trump put in place his reciprocal tariffs. And, you know, believe it or not, I didn't even watch the presentation that day because on Wednesdays, I typically stay away from doing shows and doing content for that. It's a day that I try to refocus and do other things. And I didn't really focus much on the actual presentation. However, what he was doing was essentially showing America that we're not being treated fairly across the board. Not at all. And what I've seen on my Facebook feed and a little bit on some other social media feeds is some disparity between the establishment Republicans and people who are just getting into politics, may have just voted for Trump for the very, very first time in 2024. And now they're kind of wondering what's going on. And they're seeing the mainstream media try to push this narrative that tariffs are this horrible, thing that if Trump does, then it's going to crash the economy. Well, there's a lot to that, but we know right now that things are not working across the board. That when Trump came on, what Biden had done with his hyperinflation, with him shipping our jobs overseas, not only him, but W. Clinton through NAFTA and Obama, this globalist initiative that's been going on for the past 30 to 40 years has done nothing but undermine America. We've lost millions of manufacturing jobs overseas. And the reason why that happened, and we'll get into this a little bit later in the program, but more or less as an executive summary of this particular stream tonight, is the fact that they felt this is the manufacturing, this is the uniparty, the Republicans and the Democrats kind of colluded on this with big business, with labor unions and so forth, to essentially allow them to have cheaper products to consumers, but yet still get increased profits. Typically, when that happens, it doesn't work that way. If you pass on your savings to your customer, typically that means that you don't make that much more profit in general. So you don't typically decrease your overhead and then turn around and increase your manufacturing to overseas. And what that ends up doing is it ends up creating a false dichotomy where you have Americans who are used to be working in this country, in, let's say, Ohio or Detroit, and next thing you know, your job is being shipped overseas, and we're getting cheap import labor coming in, so we buy cheaper end products coming in, and therefore the companies can sell at a lower rate and get more money. But yet we're losing the fabric of our country, and we're losing the national security that is provided to us through mercantilism, which we'll talk about a little bit later, which is essentially having an economic policy that strengthens your national defense. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring up a clip here on X, and check this out. This is we'll go over this and we'll go through these clips. I have a bunch of these things here. This is basically, we're talking about economic nationalism as a founding principle. And we'll talk about Hamilton and his visions for in Federalist paper number 11. We're talking about tariffs basically equal national defense. And we're going to talk about globalism and how it becomes a constitutional crisis. because Trump is trying to restore Congress's power to regulate trade and reversing decades of delegation to accountable and delegation to unaccountable international institutions. So let's take a look at this clip here, and we'll react to it.
Country. First of all, there's the issue of lumber for the right. Obviously, we have your Mexican border. I mean, hello, the most obvious them to stop allowing the free flow of fentanyl into this country, which murders 100,000 Americans every year. But most importantly, Trace, this president is waging class warfare on behalf of the American working class. These are the very people who have been abused and fleeced and humiliated and destroyed by an international economic order in which the American middle class is asked to bear the burden of the global elites who have gotten rich off of all of this free trade at our expense. You know, if tariffs are so terrible, how come all of these countries have tariffs on us?
That right there is a great point. If tariffs are that of a taboo, if it's such a bad thing for country like America to do, then why is it that every other country in the world is doing it to us? Why is it that they can do it to us and we can't do the same thing to them?
It's utterly, utterly absurd. What Trump is doing is reversing the trend in which we took a country built on a stable middle class, built on manufacturing, and we destroyed it with an upward funnel of wealth to the elites. And Trace, this is why Wall Street is going crazy. Wall Street is trying to short President Trump's agenda because they cannot stand that he has taken the spigot, which was turning up to the elites, and pointed it back down to the hardest working Americans, the backbone of this country.
And that pretty much says.
So yeah, that's a really good point there. And she basically level set this whole conversation with what's happening. And that Ross Perot, who ran for president in '92, I remember him doing these debates with Clinton and forget the running mate he's going against, actually. It was Clinton and, it was Bush Senior. And Ross Perot was trying to tell people of